Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. So first up today, I want to touch on this article that is actually a bit misleading. It makes you think that all of a sudden now Tesla is doing over 10% of revenue from the energy and services and other segments as if it was for the first time. When in reality, if you look back across the last 4 years of quarterly data, you can see that Tesla's percentage of revenue from energy and services and other has actually always been somewhere between 9 and we'll call it 16%. And this column right here is exactly why there are still people out there that call Tesla just a car company. But the reason I've been talking about this narrative is set to change is because I think by the end of this year, and even more so into 2024 and 2025, that narrative will finally be able to change. And that's because we're now at a point where Tesla Energy is expected to grow anywhere between 100 and 200% per year, when Tesla Auto is still at 50%. It's because Tesla has more battery supply. Semiconductors aren't as much of an issue. Remember, that was impacting Tesla Energy more than Tesla Auto. And like we've been saying, the mega factory season is here with 2 announced factories and potentially more soon. So I wanted to drop this chart on your radar because we'll be following it closely in the months ahead. But also remember, be careful with what you read. There's a lot of misleading information out there. Just one other thing to highlight, using that same revenue data for Tesla's automotive growth quarter over quarter, you'll note that every single year over the past 4 years, at least one quarter from an auto revenue perspective has been negative. Once last year, once in 2021, once in 2020, and once in 2019. I think it would be wise of us to take a second and talk about things going on with BYD. Now, I'm not ready to say that the sky is falling for BYD or that sales are collapsing or anything like that, but let's just point out a few things to at the very least keep an eye on and see how things shake out over the course of this year. One thing, we have this video from the China Observer. Thank you, Jeff. As you can see, there are these random parking lots with seemingly hundreds, if not thousands, of new EV BYD models just sitting when all BYD reps have been telling the public that there are no available vehicles and there's a 3-month wait list. So is it that BYD just doesn't want to sell these vehicles at lower prices, so they're just waiting until something changes? I don't really know. Again, I'm not sure what to make of these videos, but it's something to be aware of. We had talked a week or 2 ago about this video highlighting multiple instances of BYD vehicles on fire that the government, of course, is actively suppressing. Now, in fairness, I struggle with videos like this because anybody could pull all of the Tesla fires and compile them into one video to make it seem like the world is falling, kind of like they're doing with this video, so we do have to be careful. And there are other anecdotes for BYDs, like in an accident like this where the airbags aren't deploying, along with some other quality control issues of wheels or axles falling off in some cases. Now look, of course, when a company sells as many vehicles as quickly as BYD has, you're going to have some quality control issues. There's no doubt about it. My question and purpose for sharing all of this is, what is the actual extent of these problems? Back to this video from the China Observer, he was talking about how there is a desire for the mainstream market to own a vehicle, specifically electric. The problem still boils down to affordability. Most people just can't afford these vehicles, and further, even some that can are hesitant to buy one because of all of the question marks surrounding the economy. In February, China's CPI was only up 1% year over year, which of course signals very slow economic growth. However, I think one of the biggest storylines about BYD is that right now, most of their sales are still in the domestic Chinese market. We're talking in the neighborhood of 90%. And it's pretty simple. If you're that reliant on one market and that one market starts to have a lot of problems when it comes to people buying cars, then it's pretty apparent to see the issue. The Seal, the sedan that competes with the Model 3, started off selling well as it just entered the market toward the end of last year. So far this year though, sales are down fairly significantly, which, no surprise, just led to these price cuts about a week ago. And of course, everybody's lowering prices, Tesla included, but BYD did come out and say earlier this year they were not going to lower prices, seemingly portraying confidence, and well, here we are. Then we have the newly launched luxury brand from BYD called Yang Wang, and they just released the U9 hypercar with its own apparently in-house built new suspension system that BYD plans to use across a myriad of vehicles that has the ability to apparently jump off of the ground. Why? I'm not entirely sure, but honestly, it's pretty cool engineering if it's legit, but is it more of a gimmick than a feature that's going to be useful? Part of the reason I bring that up is because BYD is flooding the market with different vehicle lineups, basically taking the opposite strategy Tesla has deployed. I mean, we're talking the Atto, the Song, the C9, the Destroyer, Dolphin, the E-Series, F-Series, G-Series, the Han, the Chin, the Seal, the Tong, etc. So again, I'm not ready to say whether this is better or worse. Maybe both of these strategies, Tesla's and BYD's, can ultimately work, but I'm just pointing this out as something we should all be watching in the months and years ahead. And honestly, from a simple standpoint, I think the quality control is hard enough even with just a few models for a new company making new EVs. Then to add many different models to that mix, it's of course going to be a bigger challenge for BYD to have very good quality control for all of these different models. So I know that probably just came off like a BYD hit piece. I promise that was not my intent. All companies, including Tesla, have issues. I just think there are some storylines with BYD that more people are not familiar with enough. And Tesla, on the other hand, is already a global brand with global recognition and trust, and that's something that BYD is only now starting to build, starting with Europe. So we need to see how those initial sales go in the next few months. Because sure, China is the biggest car market in the world, but if BYD can't scale globally and they're relegated to that market where people really don't have money to buy cars and there's not much hope that that's going to change anytime soon, then BYD might pretty quickly get stuck in a precarious situation. Moving on, at least legally, Twitter has now been changed to X. Scrolling down, you'll see the name defendant Twitter has been merged into X Corp and Twitter no longer exists. X Corp. So now we have X Corp and a parent corporation, X Holdings Corp. You may recall 2 years ago, Dave Lee suggested Elon create a holding company called X. I only bring this up because I think some people are concerned this is where Tesla gets merged together with all of Elon's other companies under this X Holdings Corp, which personally I don't want that. That's topic for another video. However, I do not think that's what this is, and don't forget what Elon said.
We don't even have an app that's as good as WeChat in China. And like in China, you can like live on WeChat basically. Yeah. It's like, yeah, everyone's like, like you live on WeChat, you do payments, you do everything. It's like, yeah, it's great. Basically, WeChat's great. And we don't have anything like WeChat outside of China. So I was like, my idea would be like, how about if we just copy WeChat?
Elon has a long history with the letter X, not just naming kids, but also X.com, which eventually became PayPal, SpaceX, the Model X, now Project X, which may be this new Twitter, which is now in this X Corp. So again, just bringing this up because no, I do not think this is when Tesla gets merged with all of Elon's other companies in this X Holdings. I just think that Elon may be transitioning Twitter to become the X or the everything app, just like WeChat in China. So that's my expectation and my hope, but that does not mean it will be our reality. We'll see. There were a lot of people on Twitter today talking about an article from Teslarati sharing this survey from American Trucks back from the end of February. They asked 90 respondents to draw over a dozen popular car and truck logos from memory, and then this company scored them on accuracy. They also surveyed 500 Americans to see which logos they thought were the best. Personally, I think this is super goofy and has to be fairly subjective, but here are the results for that logo memory test. And those 500 people surveyed said these were the top 5 auto brand logos, Tesla number 3. If you're interested in this, it'll be below. Autoline came out with its industry report card for 2022, and just want to show you a few slides, ranking by net profit per unit sold. Tesla leading the way, and just look at the bottom of the list. Not to mention the only company on this list with a real shot at solving true autonomy anytime in the near future. In case you've forgotten, Tesla did come out saying the financial metric to watch for Tesla and what they are optimizing for is this right here. operating margin or operating profit, where Tesla is leading the industry. And this is just one fraction of all of the reasons why Tesla deserves the multiple it has. And yes, I know that statement I just made is biased and subjective. I'm just saying, call me in 2025 and we'll see what's what. Here we have GM investing in a lithium startup, Energy X, and they are now apparently experts in the field, saying the most efficient method to extract lithium from brine sources is this DLE tech, or direct lithium extraction, when basically everybody else so far has failed to do this, extracting directly from the brine, essentially bypassing the entire refining process. The financial terms were not disclosed. Energy X is currently a private company, but it looks like they're planning an IPO sometime in 2024. So Energy X claiming that this DLE technology can extract lithium metal directly from the brine. We'll see. Hyundai just put out a press release saying its goal is to be in the top 3 EV manufacturers globally by 2030. They're aiming for a global EV volume of 3.64 million units by 2030. And they're set to introduce a new EM platform designed exclusively for passenger EVs, which will be introduced in 2025. And by 2030, Hyundai Group said they'll have a total lineup of 31 electric vehicles. Ford put out a new press release. It's set to spend about $1.3 billion to revamp a factory in Ontario to make next-gen EVs. Renamed the Oakville Electric Vehicle Complex, it'll begin to retool and modernize in the second quarter of next year to prepare for production of next-gen EVs. You can find me on Twitter at DylanLoomis22. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.